All right, so for today's lesson, we're doing writing. Sorry, for today's lesson, we're doing writing equations given a graph. All right, but before you can do those equations, you got to understand the slope-intercept formula. All right, so the slope-intercept formula is y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope and b is your y-intercept. All right, and for slope, remember we talked about rise over run. Okay, so for rise, if it's going up, it's positive. If it's going down, it's negative. And then for run, if it's going to the left, it's negative. And if it's going to the right, it's positive. All right. So that was all for slope. And then you got your y-intercept here. And we talked about where y-intercept is your starting point for your graph or your initial value. So whenever we're doing our graph, that's going to be the first place we're looking for. Okay. So now that we got that, let's go ahead and start practicing some examples, showing you guys exactly what you're going to have to do for this lesson. All right. So, all right, here I'm just going to do a couple examples. Not going to be here up here too crazy long. So here we go. The first example. So, the very first thing you need to do when you're doing this is you want to go ahead and put down that formula: y equals mx plus b. Go ahead and put that down. Kind of like when we did volume. I wanted you guys to put the formula down first. This is what I would like for you to do for these problems here. So that way you kind of have something you can go ahead and reference. All right. So I'm going to put down our formula y equals mx plus b first. All right. Once you have that formula down, remember we said that our y-intercept is our starting point. So you want to look on your line to where your line crosses that vertical or that y-axis. So for this example here, my y-intercept will be right here at 0, 4. So I'm just going to go ahead and write it down. You don't have to write this down, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. So for 0, 4, that's our y-intercept. Okay. And we said that that y-intercept represents our b. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want to go ahead and plug in my b. So now I'm going to have y equals mx plus 4, because that's where I got that from. My y-intercept is 4, so I'll plug in 4 for my b. All right, now that we have our b, we have to look for our slope. Well, in order to get our slope, we have to find another point on our line that we could use to find our distance. So I'm going to scroll down my line until I find a point that we could use. So boom, I got one right here. All right. So now that we have 2 points in our line, it's easier to find our slope. All right. Remember, slope is rise. So slope is rise over run. Okay. So for this situation here, we got to do either up or down to get to our next point. Well, in this case here, we got to go down. So let's count how far down we got to go. We got to go down 1, 2, 3. So we got to go down 3. Well, being that it's a going down for our rise, that is going to be a -3. So our rise is -3. And then we got to count our run, which is going to be 1, 2. So it's going to the right, so that's positive. So our rise over run or our slope is -3 over 2. Now, since we got our slope or our m, we're just going to plug that in for m. So now our equation becomes y equals -3 over 2x plus 4. And that is our equation. Okay. It's not really a hard thing that we got here. It's important lesson, but it's not really the hard, a hard lesson. It's just finding your y-intercept, plugging it in, finding your slope, plugging it in, and you got your equation. Let's go ahead and do another example. All right. So for this one, again, the first thing we want to do is write our formula. Y equals mx plus b. Okay. Make sure you have that formula written down. All right. It helps out a whole lot. All right. And then what you want to do is you want to find your b or find your y-intercept. Remember, that's our initial point. That's our first point we want to look for. Well, okay. So I'm going to scan my line until I go across that y-axis. All right. In this case, it goes across right here at the origin or at 0, 0. So in this case, my b or my y-intercept is 0. So I'm just going to plug it in. Y equals mx plus 0. Okay. Once I got that, Now I'm looking for my slope. But remember, we got to have 2 points in order to find our slope, at least 2 points. So we got one with our y-intercept. So let's just find another one. So I'm going to scroll until I got a point that I can use. Let's scroll. And I got one right here. All right. So there we go. Here's what we got to do now. All right, we're going to do our rise, which is we're going down 1, 2. So we're going down 2, so that's going to be a -2. And we're going to the right 1. So that's going to be a +1. Okay, so down 2 to the right 1. Okay, so my slope or my rise over run is going to equal -2 over 1. And that's my slope. Okay, so could you put -2 over 1 for your slope? Yeah, but like all things when it comes to fractions, they want it simplified. So this just simplifies to -2. Now that we know that m is -2, I just plug it in. Y equals -2x. And really, since my b is 0, we don't have to really put it back in. So my equation is just going to be y equals -2x. All right. All right, so let's look at another one. We'll probably do like 3 or 4 examples, and then I'll end the video. And then if you have any questions on our for the assignment, you have a discussion board, you can drop your questions right there. All right, we'll look at it when we do our live video chat. All right, so again, first step, y equals mx plus b. All right. Then what you have to do, again, first thing we want to look for on our line is our y-intercept. And that's going to be where it crosses that y-axis. So it's going to be right here at 0, 2. Okay, so that means our b is going to be 2. So I just plug it in. Y equals mx plus 2. All right, take it step by step. All right, then we got our b or our y-intercept. We're going to look for our slope. So our slope, we'll find another point. Go on down our graph, find another point. Got one right here. All right, and that's at -2, -4. So now that we have our point, we just do our rise over run. Well, in this case, our rise is actually going up, so it's going to be positive. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our rise is 6, a +6, and our run is going to be 1, 2. So a +2 because we're going to the right. So again, our rise over run, or our m, or our slope, is going to equal to 6 over 2. Now, technically 6 over 2 is our slope, but again, we got to simplify it. All right, so that can be simplified to 3 over 1, which equals just 3. Okay, so our slope, or our m, is going to be 3. So now that I have my m, I'm just going to plug it in. So now our equation becomes y equals 3x plus 2. So this is where I got that from. Plugging it right in. All right, 3x plus 2. Okay, that's all it is. All right, and let's try one more. All right. All right, so let's try number 4 right here. Okay, let's try number 4. All right, first thing I'm gonna do, write my equation. Y equals mx plus b. And then scroll down my line till I find my y-intercept. All right, scrolling, crosses that y-axis right here. All right, and that's going to be 1, 2, 3. So this is at 0, 3, which means my b is just going to be 3. So I just plug it in. Y equals mx plus 3. All right, got one of my points. So now I got to find another point so I can find my slope. All right, so I'm scrolling down my line. Oh, find one right here at -3, -2. Okay, so now that I got my 2 points, I can just find my slope. All right, so to get there, go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. And then I'm going to go to the right. So sorry, put my 5 down because it's going up. That's positive. Then I'm going to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. So my rise again is going to be 5, positive 5. My run is going to be 3. Okay. That can't be simplified. So this is going to be your slope or your M. And I'm just going to plug it in. Okay. So now my Y equals 5 over 3x plus 3. Okay. And that's all today's lesson's about. This is it. All right. Again, this is talking about writing equations, given a graph. Part of your assignment will be watching this video and then answering some questions on the discussion board. And one of the questions on the discussion board is going to ask you, is there any questions or anything you didn't understand? So make sure if you don't understand something, please write that in. And what we'll do is on that live video chat that we'll do every day, block 1 will be from 9 to 9:30. Block 2 will be from 11 to 11:30, and block 3 is 12 to 12:30. During those periods of time, ask me any questions that you have in regard to this lesson. Okay. You guys continue to stay safe, and really miss you guys.